Ian Garry's taking yet another short notice fight against a very dangerous opponent. Following his competitive, yet let's face it, clear defeat to Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Garry's stock and reputation rose in the welterweight division. Not only did he remind people that he's a very skilled operator, he also showed himself to be a complete savage, prepared to step up against the best on late notice. Fast forward to April 2025 and he's stepping up yet again to face knockout artist Carlos Prates. In this video we're going to be talking about the massive risk that Ian Garry's taking by fighting Carlos Prates on short notice. Could it backfire massively, or could it propel him back to the top of the welterweight division? I'll also end this video by giving my fight prediction. Hello guys and welcome back to Fight Energy. If you are interested in UFC breakdowns, predictions and analysis, please do subscribe to the channel. Anyway, let's get into exactly what Ian Garry's getting himself into here, because he has gained a reputation of being something of a anyone, anywhere, anytime fighter. And this is a fighter, bear in mind, whose reputation had really gone downhill with the fan base. After he took that Shavkat fight on short notice, he definitely gained a lot of respect and a lot more fans off the back of that. But remember that Shavkat Rakhmonov was originally meant to be fighting for the title before he got matched with Ian Garry. So that fight was definitely a #1 contender fight. However, this fight against Carlos Prates, it does scream at me more risk than reward. On top of that, Carlos Prates is a nightmare matchup on short notice. He's really awkward and unpredictable. At least with Shavkat Rakhmonov, you knew what you were going to get, this juggernaut moving forward, not really moving his head but pressuring you forward, very clinical striking. With Carlos Prates, it's a completely different game. He's got big power, he comes from awkward angles, and he doesn't need much of an opening to finish the fight. And for Ian Garry to be taking him on without a specific game plan built up over an entire fight camp, this is a massive risk, and one for his sake that I hope pays off. But whenever there's a risk, there's always a reward on the flip side. And if Ian Garry does pull this off and looks good doing it, it could propel him back into title contention. However, it does depend on a few external factors working in his favour. The UFC will consider who else is making moves within the division, what happens between Belal Muhammad and JDM. If JDM wins that fight, they might just have Islam Makhachev going straight into a title shot. Whether the UFC sees this win as impressive enough to be awarded a title shot. And finally, the performance itself. Ian Garry can't just win this fight. He needs to look good doing it if he wants a title shot at the end of it. His fights against MVP and other fights where he's looked a bit point fighty won't help him with Dana White and Hunter Campbell looking to make that next title shot. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is too much risk too early on in Ian Garry's career? Or is it worth a roll of the dice? Is Prates not on his level? Let me know what you think and let's get into the fight itself. So let's start by talking about Ian Garry's opponent, Carlos Prates. This guy's on a serious streak right now, along with all the other fighting nerds. He's been quietly building momentum, maybe not the most iconic fighter in that fighting nerd stable, but he's been putting together really nasty knockouts against better and better names in the welterweight division. He definitely doesn't have that casual crossover yet, but if he keeps putting together knockouts like this, and the UFC take a deeper dive into what he's like outside of the octagon, because I think like his smoking cigarettes on fight week and things like that, there's definitely a character there. I just want the UFC to explore that a bit more, and I think his fan base, along with the rest of the fighting nerds, could absolutely explode. I know they've been accused of being a bit of a gimmick, but the results speak for themselves. You just saw Silva's performance against Bryce Mitchell this last weekend. The fighting nerds have something very special there. They've got the swagger, they look so confident in the octagon, look as though they're having fun. And Carlos Prates is a lead example of that. Now, I'm a massive fan of this guy's striking. It's very smooth, he's very long, very rangy, lands at the very end of his punches, but he also mixes that up with real sudden explosive movements as well, the type of knockout that caught Neil Magny. I also like the fact that he doesn't throw for the sake of throwing. He can be patient at times, waiting for those openings, and he's more of a fighter to walk you onto a shot rather than going chasing it. He's already putting together a really nice highlight reel in the UFC. I'm sure that Ian Garry has studied that and seen how much of a fan he is of the knees to the body, that check left hook, and I do want to take a deeper look into one of his finishes, which was against Li Jingliang. So we're taking a look at the finishing sequence from Carlos Prates against Li Jingliang. And as Li's back is against the fence, Carlos Prates cracks him with a nice jab from the southpaw position. Let's keep it playing forward. He's just getting reads of how Li is reacting to these shots. He feints, half feints another jab there, as you can see. and lands a really solid left hand that just splits Li Jinglang's guard. Let's keep it playing through. He gets a good impact there. Li looks terrified. He's just opening up here. This is a really nice combination that you're going to see a lot from Carlos Prates, probably this weekend. He goes for a left hook, but it's not quite fake, but he tries to pull down on Li Jinglang's guard here. He's done this before in other fights, and as you can see here, it's an Alex Pereira-esque left hook coming up now from his left hip that cracks. You can see the impact that makes. Wow. I'm not sure how good the quality of this is, but as you can see, he lands a solid left hook that completely wipes out Li Jinglang. And I don't know how much preparation Ian Garry's been able to do from Carlos Prates, but he needs to be very careful of that left hook. It is, like Alex Pereira, an ultimate equaliser in the welterweight division. And it's also the kind of finish that tells you that Prates isn't just a banger, he's a technician, he's a clinical finisher. So it's clear that Carlos Prates is very good, but let's not ignore the fact that Ian Garry is clearly a massive step up for him. Absolutely no disrespect to Neil Magny or Li Jinglang, but technically, fight IQ wise, skill wise, Ian Garry's on another level. You just have to look at his performance against Shavkat Rakhmonov, and even in defeat, it did tell us a lot about Ian Garry. It showed us that he's very defensively sound, he understands distance, timing, and most importantly, how to stay calm under pressure, which could be really, really important in this fight. And let's be honest, Shavkat Rakhmonov was finishing everyone until he walked into Ian Garry. And for Ian Garry to face Shavkat on short notice and go the distance, it was very impressive. So while the defensive capabilities of Ian Garry in that Shavkat fight may give fans of his a lot of faith, there is an elephant in the room in the shape of Song Kanon. And you look back at that fight and you see Ian Garry getting dropped in the manner that he did. Some wild swinging there. He got caught. He did win the fight in the end, but he got caught and he got dropped pretty badly in that fight. It does beg the question whether or not this was just a momentary lapse, or does it reveal something more fundamental? Because if there are any fundamental holes in Ian Garry's defence, a real sniper, sharpshooter, clinical finisher like Carlos Prates is likely to find them. However, I'm prepared to put that down to a lack of experience, because based off of his most recent fight, he did look defensively sound against Shavkat Rakhmonov. He was never really in any danger, and against someone who finished off everybody else, that was really good to see. And the fact that his fight was competitive against Shavkat does tell you that Ian Garry belongs at the top of this division. Maybe he needs to add a bit of killer instinct to his game, but there was nothing lucky about that performance. I don't care whether or not Shavkat had injuries heading into the fight. Everyone has injuries heading into fights. And Ian Garry deserves all the credit in the world for the performance he put in, but ultimately you are judged by the results you get, and he lost that fight. So even though it shows that he can hang with the elite of the division, it doesn't show that he can beat them. And by taking this fight against Carlos Prates, if he was to look good and still lose this fight, that means that he's on a 2-fight losing streak. And I'd hate to see him going down the route of Corey Sandhagen, a fighter who I absolutely love, but seems to be that perennial top 5 guy, beats everyone else in the division, but when he comes across the very best, he falls short. And for someone who has very clear title aspirations like Ian Garry, a 2-fight losing streak at this stage of his career, where he seemed beforehand to be building up all that momentum, could be very detrimental. As for Carlos Prates, is he a title contender? We don't yet know. This fight's going to tell us a hell of a lot. We know that he can finish fights in devastating fashion, but we don't know yet how he'll do against a technician like Ian Garry. So with that being said, let's take a look at the well-roundedness of Ian Garry. Like Prates, he does have clean, rangy striking. He generally has very good shot selection, but going beyond that, he's shown very good grappling ability too. When he fought MVP, he turned it into a boring wrestling match. He had to. You saw what MVP just did against Shara Bullet, a striker who was riding a big momentum wave as well, meant to be going to that title shot eventually. MVP put the brakes on that by doing what he does best. Ian Garry didn't want to engage with that awkward karate style. He wanted to fight the fight on his terms, so took it to the ground. And although he has come under fire for his style being a bit point fighty, maybe not always going for the finish, he does have knockout power. That head kick against Daniel Rodriguez, he has demonstrated power and clinical finishing in his fights too. Now looking at a comparison of the styles between the two fighters, Prates has shown a lot of patience before, waiting for that counter shot, and this could actually play into Ian Garry's hands here, because counter shots do rely on someone else leading the dance, and this could allow Ian Garry to dictate the distance of this fight, get off point scoring shots. I'm really sorry because this is probably not what the fans want to hear a couple of days before the fight. But if Prates' patient style does allow Ian Garry to dictate the range of the fight, he could have a lot of success with both his long range weapons and in the clinch, where he's proven to be very strong in the past. So we are about to get into the fight prediction itself, but when we're looking at both fighters comparing their skill sets, Ian Garry does seem to be the more well-rounded fighter and has undoubtedly faced better opposition. But we can't forget that standing at the opposite side of the octagon to Ian Garry is a fighting nerd, and something is just going on in their camp at the moment. There's something in the water down there. They're all just full of confidence on these crazy win streaks. So can you see that confidence, the aura that these guys are generating coming to an end on Saturday night? I'm not too sure. All these guys build each other up. They radiate confidence in the octagon, and I cannot wait for this fight. But anyway, let's get into my prediction, how exactly I think it's going to go down, and whether or not this gamble by Ian Garry is going to backfire. Now, despite Ian Garry being an absolute savage for stepping in on short notice again, I don't actually think that word describes his style at all. He's not reckless, he's not wild, he's calculated and methodical, starts off slowly, gets his range, and then slowly starts to take over the fight. I do think that he's going to keep things really long early, using his teep, using his jab, and if Prates gets frustrated and decides to swarm him, I can see Ian Garry engaging in the clinch and possibly even taking Prates down. And by the way, I'm not underestimating how good and how dangerous Prates is on the feet. I'm just really confident in how defensively sound Ian Garry is. I do think there's a high chance that Ian Garry does get clipped in this fight. Prates is that good at striking. But if he does get clipped, I can see Ian Garry wrapping up in the clinch, not panicking, adjusting, getting on his bike for maybe half a round whilst he just gets his wits back. I just think where he is right now, he's not going to offer too many openings to Prates or panic if he gets hit. Now, there is a massive question mark about this fight, as it is short notice. What kind of condition is Ian Garry in? Now, I know that Ian Garry, although he does travel round to different gyms, he's very well conditioned. He always stays in very good fight shape. And let's face it, he wouldn't have accepted this fight if he couldn't make the weight or if he was in terrible condition. There was no massive pressure on him to take this fight. He had already stepped up on late notice against Shavkat. He didn't need to prove himself again. But he's clearly very confident about this matchup. There's a reason why he accepted it. There's a reason why he thinks this is a favourable matchup for him. And this is the reason why I'm picking Ian Garry to win on Saturday night via decision against Carlos Prates. I do think he's going to become the first fighting nerd to take a loss on Saturday night in the UFC. And I can see Ian Garry propelling himself to title contention, perhaps leapfrogging Shavkat Rakhmonov. And if Belal Muhammad wins the title and he's not going to fight Islam Makhachev, we could see Belal Muhammad against Ian Garry at the end of the year. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Ian Garry is an absolute savage. Massive fan of both of these fighters. I think it's going to be an absolute banger. Let me know in the comments below how you think it's going to go.